AITA for proving to my family my mother is misogynistic. I forget where I read it, but someone said we most likely learned internalized misogyny for our mothers instead of our fathers. I'm 18 and been dealing with my hyper-religious parents. My mother has always preached that a man and woman have their set roles in the house. Basically the man works and the woman does housework. So growing up I never liked this mindset. My mother would literally shove me out the house to work with my dad and have my sisters help her cook and clean. But to the main story. My mother's been really sick lately, not corona, and she's been unable to cook or do anything. My dad has been used to just having her cook, so we've been surviving on a diet of takeout. If I have to eat another Wendy's 4 for $4 I'll lose it. So I decided to use some money I had set aside to go to the store and cook a homemade meal. I watched a lot of people cooking it. It wasn't the first time I've cooked, but it was the first time I've cooked for my parents. My dad will eat anything, so I didn't expect a record on how good it was from him. But I gave some to my mom and she made comments like I'm a boy and can't do the job right or whatever, and even after she ate it, multiple servings, she still told the family on our weekly FaceTime calls how bad it was and I should stick to working outside. I knew she was going to, but I felt shitty having her laugh at my genuine effort. So I stopped doing everything I would do in the house. All the womanly tasks such as cleaning, washing the dishes and such. Since she was stuck in her bed she didn't see how the house got. When she finally got better to walk around she saw how dirty it was. She began to yell at me for not cleaning and I reminded her that those were by her standards a woman's job. She flipped and began to rage on our weekly FaceTime calls. So when my family asked me why I didn't help I explained to her that she said those were women's jobs and I should be outside working, which I was. I built a folding table out of only wood, smiley face. Now my family is laughing at her and she's pissed. Some of my sisters said they know what she said, but she was sick as bedridden so I should have been the bigger man and done it anyway. But I think I was just listening to what she said. So AITA? NTA. She asked for it. And even without all the gender stereotype and stuff, as a mom she should have shown a little appreciation for your cooking efforts. Just out of curiosity, how long did you leave the place uncleaned? Not that it affects the judgment, just the level of dedication. NTA. It's her own fault and honestly that's hilarious. NTA. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. How did the table turn out? It's kinda wobbly but it works. NTA. Your mom sounds misogynistic. She also sounds like she's got a whole lot emotionally vested in her prescribed role and your cooking ability was threatening that. Sounds like you aren't buying in, so good for you. AITA for calling my husband a sexist after he told our 4-year son to stop screaming like a girl. A toddler screamed about something this morning and my husband told him to stop screaming like a girl. I found this a bit offensive and asked him to please not talk about girls negatively in the future. He argued it was not offensive because girls scream more than boys. I said 4-year-old boys scream just as much / loudly as girls. He said well they shouldn't. I said that's archaic and sexist. What started out as a small argument has snowballed into a big fight. We hardly spoke the whole day and he has just told me I was rude and condescending to him this morning for calling him sexist and he expects an apology. I don't feel I was out of line and I still think what he said is offensive to girls, but he does not agree. AITA? NTA. Toddlers scream. Your son was screaming like a 4-year-old. Ah, yes. Indeed. NTA. That is sexist. Children learn casual sexism through comments like these. This is the same as someone who says their boy needs to man up. It is sexist and promotes toxic masculinity, negative stereotypes and a skewed view of girls/women. It's a shame he can't see he is in the wrong. I am sure he doesn't consider himself sexist, but he obviously still has some deep-seated views of appropriate male/female behavior. These types of comments are all microaggressions and they are harder to recognize. Good for you for calling him out on it. It's one thing to call him out but another thing to get him to listen. Thank you anyway. NTA. Even if your husband wasn't being intentionally sexist, language like that is rooted in misogyny. He's instilling the idea that boys need to act a certain way, stoic maybe, and that not doing so makes them womanly, and that is a bad thing. You can undermine this subtle messaging by telling your son it's okay to scream as long as he does so in the correct place, outside, and when no people are around to be bothered by it. Let him know it's okay to express emotions, and doing so doesn't make him a girl, but even if it did, being a girl isn't a bad thing. Thank you. Some good messages to teach my boys. AITA for not telling my nationality right away. Recently my boyfriend introduced me to a group of friends. We went to a fancy Italian restaurant together. I am Italian. My family lives in Italy, and I lived there for more than 20 years before moving to the US. While my boyfriend and his friends all ordered wine and fancy meals, I opted for a soft drink and some roasted chicken with fries. I've always been picky, and I'm not a fan of the American version of Italian food. Seldom eat Italian here in the US, and that dinner was not an exception. One of my boyfriend's friend, Jay, made a joke about me being clearly not fancy enough to enjoy real Italian. I replied that I like my Italian food in Italy. I think Jay understood something like I once went in Italy and liked the food there, and proceeded talking about his 2 weeks in Europe 5 years ago. I said nothing about it for the rest of the meal. While we were eating dessert, one of the other friends asked me where I was from, since she noted my accent was a bit weird. I replied Italy. Jay instantly went silent. He barely looked at me when we said our goodbyes. Later my boyfriend told me I was kind of a dick, but he's a bastard, and probably enjoyed the look on Jay's face. One of his friends later messaged him to let him know that I'm an A for embarrassing Jay. Edit. Thank you Redditors. Some of you actually suggested me to rethink about my boyfriend's part in this, so I talked to him and he apologized for making things awkward. He also said we are not going to meet Jay and the other friends anymore if I don't feel comfortable with it. We also made a bet that he'll find an Italian American meal that I enjoy as much as the original. NTA. He chose to run his mouth before having all the facts. NTA, that is hilarious. Yeah, those guys are assholes for their comments, and I think it's ridiculous you need to just come out and say you're Italian just because you're in an Italian restaurant or something. NTA, you gave him a great chance to get to know you better. If someone said that to me, my next question is, oh, when did you visit Italy? Instead he saw a chance to talk himself up and brag about his travels. He could have easily found out where you were from if he'd bothered to ask, instead of trying to shame you for your food choices. NTA, you did not embarrass anyone. Jay embarrassed himself. You have no obligation to stop people from acting foolish. If anything, you did him a favor by allowing him to learn this lesson in a group of friends rather than do this to someone at a business meal and end all promotion opportunity at that company.